Welcome to the Put On Waivers Media Group, home of the Put On Raiders podcast and the Student Body Right podcast. This is your place for the best breakdowns and the best insight for those who fight on and bleed silver and black. Now, here are your hosts, Dwayne Douglas and Ryan Holmes.
And welcome, everybody, to the glorious episode of the Put On Raiders podcast. I'm your host, Dwayne Douglas, along with Ryan Holmes, and we are podcasting off the beautiful shores of the Pacific Ocean. Beautiful day out here in Southern California. You got the sun back. Some of us have not got the sun back, though. I mean, some of y'all are really struggling out there in California with all the, whether it's flooding, mudslides, all that stuff like that, and, inland areas in Northern California. So hope y'all get some relief from that. PORSBR is my Twitter handle, and RHOLM22 excuse me, is Ryan's. Ryan, how you doing today?
Doing good. Yeah, sunshine up here where I'm at as well until Saturday. It looks like the rain's going to come back, and then our whole weekend's going to get washed out and into next week. So enjoying a few days without rain. I feel like I moved to Seattle. I didn't know I lived in Seattle when I live in Los Angeles. So, but oh well.
It's funny because it's kind of crazy how that happened with all this weather. But so I usually list a bunch of the cities. So I'm gonna have you guess. You have a 1 in 3 chance to get it right. So I get a report on the cities that listen to our show the most. So there's 3 of them: Los Angeles, Sacramento, and Fresno. Which city would be your pick?
The number one.
Number one of the 3.
Let's say I'm gonna guess Los Angeles.
Fresno.
Wow.
Fresno's number 1. So Fresno.
A lot of listeners in Fresno.
A lot of Fresno listeners. In 2022, they give us a report. They give me a report, whatever, of like the cities that listen to us the most, and Fresno won this year. So shout out to Fresno. The Bulldog country. I'm not sure what they say. Bulldog bread, something like that. I don't know what the hell they say. I'm a USC fan. I don't really care. Fresno State. But all right. So letters from Carr. So Carr put out a letter today. Thanking fans. Athletes do that pretty regularly now. As far as that goes, any thoughts about the letter and what was typical? Like, I didn't think anything was really big about it, but
I mean it's what you'd expect him to say. Enjoyed his time, gave his all. No hard feelings on the way out for the organization, his teammates, both cities of Oakland and Las Vegas, and that he still has the desire to play, which was something that some people question, but he clearly wants to play. Yeah. And we'll see where he lands next year. It's clear at this point that he will not be a Las Vegas Raider. I know that report by Ian Rappaport this morning where he thought he solved world hunger when he said the Raiders are looking for a Derek Carr trade. Well, duh, what do you think they were doing? That was just a random tweet that was like, I don't know why he sent this.
Yes, yeah, I'm not sure. That could have been in the one he typed up and then he pressed send by accident. So I'm not sure what was going on with that. So let's just do this. Let's take a trip back in time and go back to look at some of this draft class here. In retrospect now because the season's over now. Let's just go through these guys here. I think though, let's start off with the defensive tackles because I think that is probably to not in a position when you have a situation, Ryan, as you know, where it's a position of need, and they're just looking for any inkling of success there. These guys would have played the entire season, but they couldn't beat out people like Nichols, beat out people like Andrew Billings, Petco, Tillery, who was off the scrap heap, who gets moved around like a rag doll. What are your thoughts about Butler and Farrell?
The first thing I think of when you say let's look at the draft picks is I remember vividly, as soon as the draft ended, I sent out a tweet and it said something along the lines of the new regime is building through the trenches because we had a ton of concerns on the defensive interior and the offensive line. Fast forward how many months now since April? So 7, 8, 9 months. Mm-hmm. What are the 2 things that we're still worried about?
They're still building through the trenches.
The same 2 issues. So that's going to tell you that my grades for this draft are not going to be very good. And then I look at Neil Farrell. I got a circle around Neil Farrell. They took him as this big physical, big bodied interior run stuffer. They moved Jonathan Hankins, if we remember back to
Yep.
when they moved him to Dallas, and he still couldn't get active. They decided, you know what? Let's play Kyle Petco off the practice squad. Let's go get Isaac Rochelle. Let's go get Jared Tillery. Like, he couldn't earn snaps. Like, he was inactive. And they needed that kind of body in the middle. It's funny because if you look at the Raiders' run defense, they were really good for the first probably 6, 7, 8 weeks. And then Hankins gets traded, Perryman gets injured, and then they couldn't stop the run for like 4 or 5 weeks at the end of the season. So I have a ton of concern about Neil Farrell moving forward. He's going to have to step up next year. I would say he's on the roster bubble. You want those guys to stay on the roster because the salaries are so low. That's how you're going to build depth. So he's probably going to make the team next year, but I put it in pencil, and that's kind of scary considering he's a 4th-round pick. And then I don't even know what to say about Matthew Butler. They needed any sort of pass rush on the interior, and he couldn't log snaps. Not only could he log snaps, he was inactive. So like, I have to give an incomplete on both of them, but they're both trending in the wrong direction.
Yeah,
they both came from powerhouse SEC programs. It's not like these were mid-major guys they took out of
Cincinnati.
Sam Houston States, like the PJ Halls, and like, you need to get them bigger. You need to put weight on them. These guys should have come in and played right away. Like, they didn't have a lot in front of them. So that's a big concern, and then so that's what I would say about the 2 defensive tackles.
Yeah, and my grade for them will be low as well, and I think that's the biggest thing. And I think to me is like, what was, like, I don't remember off the top of my head, but what was Jonathan Hankins it wasn't like he was costing you an arm and a leg, but he was just doing yeoman's work as far as run stuffing. So why would you not just keep him? Like, what's the problem with just like moving on from him for just to have that stability against the run? So just to make yourself a little bit, put your defense in positive situations where it's third and 8, 3rd and 11, 3rd and 7, maybe you get more stops that way. I never understood the rush to kind of move on from Jonathan Hankins. It wasn't like he was making Aaron Donald money at defensive tackle.
I think the easiest way to answer that is the same thing that we said about this regime in training camp, is they always had an eye towards the future, and they wanted draft picks. They moved on from Trayvon Mullen. Someone was willing to offer them a 6th-round pick for Jonathan Hankins in the middle of the season. They were 2-5, 2-6, 2-7. I don't remember exactly which week they traded him, but they got some value in return. They obviously wanted draft picks. The Raiders are scheduled to have 11 or 12 picks in next year's draft. So that's why they moved him.
Yeah, it's I know. I mean,
and they weren't going to bring him back. Clearly, he wasn't in the long-term plans.
I know the answer, but I just don't. I didn't like it. I mean, I just figured you gotta you have to put some kind of competitive team on the field. That's so that just drove me crazy. Let's see here. Let's go to running back room. It's always fun to go to running back room, right? We were all just listen. The team has the Raiders had the rushing champion this year. So shout out obviously to Josh Jacobs. But we did feel like, I mean, I was listening to another podcast who was just talking about football, and they said, oh yeah, you look at the Raiders and they're doing stuff with the Raiders and going through the box scores like, hey, this Zamir White, he's good for that 1 carry a game. But Zamir White, Britton Brown didn't play much. You would think if it's one spot where teams would play guys consistently, it would possibly a lot of times it is running back. Like, running back is usually where teams will play either on special teams or give them like 4 or 5 carries a game.
Yeah, this one again is an incomplete, because I think when they misjudged the roster, you hear that talk. I think with Josh Jacobs was part of that. They didn't expect him to be as good as he was, and then they just kept beating him. My concern is he had 323 carries, something in the neighborhood of almost 350 to 400 touches over the season. That's a lot for a running back, even if he's only 24 years old. So I expect Jacobs to be back next year, which is obviously going to decrease what you're going to get from those 2 draft picks and Britton Brown and Zamir White. But I would think as they learn the playbook and they're better in pass protection, that you could possibly see Zamir White get some more carries. But best case scenario, if Josh Jacobs is healthy, is 3 to 5 carries a game. And I don't even know if we're going to get that, because we didn't get that this year. Yeah. And Zamir White is fairly healthy.
But, yeah.
Britton Brown, I don't know. It's really hard to see him having a role in this team next year. Yeah. And they kept him on the roster the entire year, which is crazy.
Yeah. And I would say too, like, to your point, if Josh Jacobs is coming back, then yes, you're not gonna see a lot of anything, right? As far as carries for them, but Josh Jacobs could miss 3 or 4 games. I mean, it's a possibility, and not having a guy who can do that is just weird. Like you got to have a guy who can who can who can spell Josh Jacobs for a couple of weeks.
393 touches is what he had this year.
That's a lot. That's a lot.
I mean, the old number a long time ago when they ran these guys in the ground, 300 was a lot. He had almost 400.
Yeah, 400. That's a lot. They ran. They said no fifth-year option. We're running you into the ground, brother. We're running you right into the ground. Running you right into the ground. Okay. So we talked about those guys here. Let's go offensive line here with Mumford and Dylan Parham. I think Parham obviously undersized for the position he played. So it's probably this can be a lot of incompletes because I kind of want to see him play 17 games at center. I think we all think that's where he's trending to. We know that. I think Andre James was probably maybe a little bit better, another quote unquote misjudge of the roster, where they maybe he was a little bit better and they couldn't just make that move and just move him. We thoughts about Parham. I think he kind of just grades out at being a future center for the Raiders, not being a guard.
Yeah, you saw it a lot in the last 4 to 6 weeks of the season where just physically he was pushed around by some bigger defensive tackles, and he wasn't able to hold up inside in pass protection. And then even in the run game, he wasn't getting a ton of movement. He's an athletic guy who I think they're going to move into center. Again, just, he's about 300 pounds, but the size concerns at guard. Mm-hmm. Get him so there's not a guy over him. Now, when they play a 3-4 defense and they have a zero technique nose tackle over him, they're going to have some issues. But for the most part, in passing situations, he's going to be able to be the guy that roams around and doubles and can work right or left to help out the other guards. And that's where he's going to be best at. They could pull him. You could see the center start getting in the pull game. He can get out on screens. And he's just better served at center. So I fully expect him to play center next year.
Yeah.
Andre James wasn't bad this year. He wasn't good, but he was probably somewhere 15 to 20th in league in terms of centers. You could probably upgrade, and I'm hoping that Dylan Parham is that upgrade. We did see him at center for a week or two when Andre James had a concussion early in the season.
Yep. And
I thought he looked fine there. Or they could possibly move him back over to right guard, but I think if you do that, then you need a dominant right tackle next to him. But I would just plug him in at center. If you want to grade him on this season, it's probably a C. I don't think I saw anything that was like, this guy's a slam dunk, above average to potentially a Pro Bowl level player. But I don't think that he's going to be a marginal or fringe roster guy. So probably somewhere in the middle. And hopefully if he moves to center, the athleticism gives you a chance to get an above average center, which is probably his best spot. But for where they took him in the 3rd round, if he plays center for 7-8 years for this team, that's a good pick.
That's a good pick. Yeah. And I think people like the pick, and everybody who liked the pick on the draft reviews that I read from him is that they liked him at center, and he's going to grade out with his body type. It can grade out to be a good center in the National Football League. Thayer Munford, Ohio State. So this is just based on he's huge, he's big, but the footwork, the feet, kind of like a little bit in cement as far as pass protection goes. As far as that goes, I mean, he so many times in the last couple of weeks that you would hear 77 is eligible. Because they kept on bringing him in for the heavy set to try to run the football. What are your thoughts about him? I just think, footwork is going to be the biggest thing for him as far as that, and that probably hand placement as well. Got some good for him to get his feet wet a little bit as a rookie, right? But he didn't shine as much as some people said thought he might.
Yeah, so some fans think they're going to plug him in next year and be a Pro Bowl right tackle. I don't see that. I think Illuminor settled down and had a pretty good season as they got through the second half of the year.
And he let people know about it too.
Yeah, he had a nice tweet today. But I think Mumford's fine as depth piece right now until he works on some footwork, some agility, gets better with his hands. He's long. He's really big and really long. So he creates a wide angle. Those rushers have to get real wide to get around him.
Yeah.
Now it's the double moves that, they give him a little head shake to the outside, get back inside. That's going to give him some problems. The real speed rushers that can dip and get around the corner would probably be a problem. But for now, as a developmental extra offensive lineman, he's fine. I don't think I would plug him in or expect him to be challenging for a starting role next year. I think he's fine in the role he's in.
Yeah.
It was 77 was eligible so much. I was waiting for the old Donald Penn throw the ball to him at some point. He was in a lot.
Fake it to him.
Is that tight end? But he's fine for what they in the 7th round. Like most of those guys are getting cut. They're hanging out on practice squads, and this guy was on the roster and got some snaps. So pretty good pick in the 7th round.
Yeah, I like that one. So a couple guys lost in the sauce a little bit. Masterson and Butler. And then also Sam Webb got some burn this year as well. Let's go with Sam Webb real quick. I thought that he got some valuable time when people got hurt just to get his feet wet in the league. I'm not sure he was really. I don't think he was really that effective out there. But I mean, he's an undrafted. I mean, he's a young corner. So what do you expect? And then he's also a young corner who I think, as Jeremy Fowler reported that the Raiders might be trying to move on from Patrick Graham. Like he was kind of hung out to dry, because if you're gonna have young undrafted, almost like street corners out there, and you're not gonna blitz, they're pretty much out to dry as far as that. And I think he was also a victim of that on the Rams play, the last play of the game, where not his fault, because they really shouldn't have been in that defense in the first place. He didn't play that well, but of course, I mean, Jefferson is more of a pro than Webb is on that play. I think we talked about it before with far as like rushing 3 and or blitzing from depth where you can't get there. I don't think this coaching staff put him or put any of these corners in favorable situations.
Yeah, he was a Division II undrafted free agent, so he got some burn early. I still like him long term as kind of a depth piece, just because of the size, speed, and he's a bigger guy that can run. He's got length. He just needs to work on his technique and then just have a better understanding of the defenses and the route concepts that teams are going to run at him. And once he understands that, like, he could probably be a 4th or 5th corner.
Yeah,
I was just concerned, like, after that Rams game, he kind of disappeared. Like, he didn't show up anymore. Like, they weren't really playing him.
He disappeared
after giving him a ton of snaps.
Yeah, he disappeared like that play was his fault. Like they should have been like they were. I mean, listen, he's covering man to man, but it wasn't like it was like some blown coverage. Like, I mean, they were in a defense that everybody in football knows that you shouldn't be in that situation, in that defense, in that situation of the game.
Yeah, I think the other concern for a player like him, like Sam Webb, is he didn't really show up on special teams. You got a young guy who's a DB that can run, that's got some size to him. He's not contributing on defense for a few weeks, but he wasn't really playing special teams either. Or when he was out there, he wasn't doing much. So that's where he's going to have, if this guy's going to stay around and play in the NFL, he's going to have to be a pretty good special teams player for the next year or two until he fully develops as a corner. Again, because of the cost, he has familiarity in the system. He's going to be back next year in training camp. Whether he makes the team or not, I don't know. But the 2 linebackers you mentioned, I want to touch base on those 2 guys. Darian Butler, I don't think he's going to be on this team next year. I just think they need a complete overhaul there. And Luke Masterson did what he could. I mean, he was a college safety, played a little bit of linebacker. He was played out of necessity because they didn't have any other bodies. They were running Harvey Lange out there, who they signed like a week or 2 before, and he's getting a ton of snaps, but just kind of lost, like you said, in zone coverage. Some of his man-to-man bit on the play fake, and this guy got wide open. He gave up a lot of catches this year, and he didn't really adjust. Like, you didn't see him get better as a pass defender. That's kind of what you're hoping for when you take a safety and move him to linebacker. He's not the biggest guy. Like, he needs to be the speed guy that can run around and play pass defense. Thought he was a little bit better in the run game when he was aggressive and he shot some gaps and penetrated, but way too much. He kind of laid back. Offensive linemen were able to get to him, and then if they get to him, it's over. Like, he doesn't have the ability to stack and shed those guys. He's not a big guy. He just needs to be a guy that can flow around and fly to the football. And those kind of players are probably better as nickel players, but they have to be able to cover, and he didn't cover. So he'll be around in training camp. if the Raiders decide to keep 5 linebackers again, he's got a shot. But to me, he's a long shot to make the roster next year. I
Yeah,
would hope they could find an upgrade.
and a guy who they I guess in the Los Angeles Charger game, they use Isaiah Palmau to do some blitzing. We like that stuff. We like blitzes up the gut against Herbert. So do you feel like he has I mean, obviously they're gonna try to overhaul everything. I mean, who knows who's gonna be on this be in his secondary next year? You think he has a chance to stay on the roster?
I do. I think Polamalu probably has a good chance to stick next year because Patrick Graham likes to play a lot of sub packages with his defensive backs. He likes to play a lot of 3 safeties.
Yeah.
And we saw Polamalu the last month get a lot of snaps. They used him as a dime linebacker, where he made a good play in the last game against the Chiefs. He actually got some snaps as a deep safety. The ball was never thrown in his area, so you didn't see him. He was kind of off the screen, but on the all-22, he did play as a deep free safety at times in some of those packages when they got Harmon and Merrick up closer to the line of scrimmage, especially if they're going to use Merrick. Merrick really shined as a man coverage guy the last month of the season. He had a really good game against Kansas City, against Kelsey. He actually had a really good game the first time against Kansas City against Kelsey outside the red zone. When they got in the red zone, he kind of got lost and gave up 4 touchdowns. But if you go back and watch the tape, like he's got the ability to cover tight ends and man coverage. And if you're going to do that, you need another deep safety. And to me, Daron Harmon, you could bring him back. I would exhaust a bunch of other options, and then if you get close to training camp and he's still out there, go ahead and bring him back as kind of a leadership. But for this defense to really take the next step, they need a rangy, a faster free safety that can get out there and cause more havoc. Daron Harmon's going to be where he's supposed to be, but like he's not a game changer at this point of his career.
Yeah, he's not a guy he's made some plays for the Raiders, but they need a playmaker at that spot, no question about it. And then if you have the 3 safeties, it also gives you more versatility what you want to do defensively as well.
And then I don't expect Teamer back either, so like that helps pull him out as well.
Teamer. I'm not sure if Teamer's going back either. All right, folks, we'll be right back. We're going to talk about some more stuff with the Raiders: Josh Jacobs, Derek Carr, and then also Patrick Graham. We'll be right back. Hey, it's halftime. Timeout. Thank you for listening to the Put on Raiders podcast and watching it on YouTube. We definitely appreciate all the support. But listen, we need you to do that thing where you subscribe. And if you're on iTunes, we need you to do that thing where you leave a 5-star review. On the Put on Raiders podcast, myself, Dwayne Douglas, and Ryan Holmes. So Jeremy Fowler had a report on Patrick Graham. There's an argument to be made for him to come back. There's also an argument to be made that say, listen, you're still responsible for some bad defensive play. And the blitzing from depth, rushing 3, some of the tackling, all that stuff like that. I mean, I know towards the end of the season, it got really hectic as far as injuries go. It was basically Max Crosby by himself out there. Maybe Nate Hobbs was hampered by it. I just saw a picture of him he got hurt. And he was in surgery. So maybe he was playing with something that we didn't hear about as well. I know we had the hand thing before, but let's kind of give like an overview of Patrick Graham here, as far as his first year with the Raiders.
Confusing, I guess, is the word that comes to mind, because like we've talked about, there's weeks where you turn on the film and you're like, man, he disguised that well. Oh, look, they're playing all these different coverages and they're doing it well. The Chargers game comes to mind. Oh, they're showing new looks they hadn't shown all year, and that was in December. Then you fire up the Steelers tape and you're like, man, they're playing a lot of cover. They're getting to cover 2 on all the spinning out of all these other looks, getting to cover 2, and they just confused Pittsburgh. And then there's other games where they're playing like this past game against Kansas City, and the week before that against San Francisco. It's like they're playing 1 or 2 coverages. It's pretty basic. It's pretty easy if you're the other team to know what they're going to do pre-snap. And you're like, why don't they just do this every week? Like, why are they not doing it all? Maybe it's because he had so many moving parts. The one thing I could say from Patrick Graham is I do like that the defense has a ton of volume. They'll play cover 1, they'll play cover 2, they'll play cover 5, they'll play cover 3, they can play cover 4, they'll drop 8. They'll do a lot of different things. It's not like Gus Bradley, we're doing one thing, but the issue you're going to have, and he did this well, I think, throughout the year. If you're going to say they did anything, they mixed it up week to week. They would stick to 2 or 3 coverage in a game plan, but one week it's cover 1, cover 3. The next week it's show a bunch of things, drop into cover 2. The next week it's cover 3, cover 4. Like, you don't really know what you're going to get from Patrick Graham, but you know the players over there aren't any good, so you can still beat them. But he needs DBs that can do a lot. If you're going to play all these coverages, you need to have a plethora of DBs that can play man coverage, zone coverage, that know all these different responsibilities. Then you're going to have linebackers that can do it as well. They didn't have anything close to the defensive backfield they need to play what he wants to play. I don't think you can get it all in one off season either. I still think they're going corner in the first round if they don't take a quarterback.
Yeah. So yeah, I mean, I listen. There's a reason for some optimism if they get some players, but it's also like you mentioned all those different things. Can you teach that out? Like, you know what I mean? I mean, it's just difficult to do that in one off season. So it's almost like we need somebody between Gus Bradley and Patrick Graham, where it's like where you know, because I think Graham was more, oh, I'm doing all this different stuff. And then you have Gus Bradley, who's doing just, hey, here's my cover 3, beat it, and that's it. So it's interesting to see what happens. Both guys have had some level of success, but I mean, somewhere in the middle has to be a happy medium between what he does and what the Raiders, actually perform.
I would add that the secondary coaches are important here.
Yeah,
the techniques that are required to play all those different defenses are different. And there's a lot of times where the Raiders just lost leverage, or they had bad technique because they were doing so many different things. They really need to clean that up next year.
Yeah. I mean, we mentioned that on the podcast too, that some of that stuff is kind of looking kind of ugly.
A pass rush would help too.
I mean, listen, if you don't, I mean, you have a pass rusher who's pretty good. They could probably use some more of that as well, and hopefully in free agency they can get something from the D. Like I just need I need Roger Coleman to have a kid or something. Like, I mean, I need a defensive tackle who can get some pressure on the quarterback.
Give me Grady Jackson. I'll take that.
Grady Jackson. I love that 9-0 was huge. That stomach was huge. But he's, you couldn't get by him because you couldn't block him. So you proposed something in the rundown as well, which is something everybody's been talking about this whole time until he actually signs. Is 28 had a great year. 28 has been, when you look at his breakdown. I wish somebody tweeted out all his accolades since he's become a Raider. But Josh Jacobs has been pretty as advertised. Probably the best pick, obviously one of the best picks, him and Max Crosby, by the Mayock and Gruden era. It's a tough situation because he is a running back, and people say he's supposed to be disposable, but they didn't actually, produce a running back who we could say, like you look at Dallas, you can see Dallas letting Emmitt Smith. You can see Dallas letting a running back go because Pollard is so good. They're almost in a situation where they have to sign Josh Jacobs, but do they tag? Are you going to try to tag him? He might not like being tagged when you put all those miles on his body. And also, or do you go a long-term deal with him? Like, you already have a lot of money tied up in this offense. And even if, Brady comes over, there's still more money tied up in this offense, and you have a lot of defensive needs.
Yeah, I've been wrestling with this one. So I tweeted something yesterday in response to Mo Moten, and it's funny, you have this faction of Raider Nation that's so mad that they didn't pick up the 5th-year option on Josh Jacobs, and they say it's so disrespectful, you can't tag him. And I tweeted, would these people have the same emotion and vigor towards the Raiders for not tagging? Let's assume they did tag him and had him back for $8 million next year. These people wouldn't be throwing their hands up and saying, you can't make him play on the 5th-year option. It's disrespectful to play on the 5th-year option. So I think that's just, they're so mad at the organization because of what's going on with Derek Carr. They're like, oh, look, let's get mad if they don't sign Josh Jacobs. I fully expect Jacobs back. He's the leader of the offense right now. They need leadership on offense with Adams and Jacobs, with Carr leaving. He's going to get tagged. And I'm pretty sure that's a foregone conclusion, because the tag number was originally supposed to be 12.6, and everyone was upset, like, oh, you could have got him for 8. Now it's going to be 12.6. It's actually come down. The latest projections are it's going to be 10.1. So it's only a $2 million difference from the tag. So basically Jacobs didn't get tagged, he's going to get an extra $2 million if he gets tagged. Had they picked up the option, it would have been 8. Now he's going to be guaranteed at least 10.1. I think they're going to try to work out a long-term deal. I don't think Josh McDaniels and Dave Ziegler are of the mindset that they're going to reset the market at the running back position. I don't see them going out and giving him $16 million a year like Christian McCaffrey and Alvin Kamara are making. They're not going to do that at the running back position. They invested in those other 2 running backs. They're going to have to find a happy medium. The difference between 10 and 16 is 13, which is kind of right where Nick Chubb is sitting. If they can get something similar to the Nick Chubb deal, 3 years, $36 million, give him $20 million guaranteed.
Yeah.
I think all that parties here will be happy. I don't think the Raiders are going to go Zeke Elliott here and just go 5-year monster contract. They have too many other holes to fill in this team. And you have to take the emotion out. That's the one thing this regime's actually been pretty good. They've taken the emotion out of a lot of these decisions. Whereas the Raider fans are really emotional about all these decisions. And I could see them sit back, say, here's the tag, and try to work with Josh. And if we get to July 15th and they can't come together, then they're just going to have him play on the franchise tag. Now, do I personally want Josh Jacobs with the Raiders long-term? Absolutely. But I'm not going to be reckless and give a running back, a 5-year deal averaging $16 million a year. I'm just not going to do that.
No, and it makes all sense in the world. And you mentioned they mentioned all the names, McCaffrey.
I would
and Kamara.
quickly throw in, you have to remember that McCaffrey and Kamara are also elite pass receivers that can go out and win one-on-one in space and are huge matchup nightmares, running the football and catching the football. Yeah. Josh Jacobs is good out of the backfield. He's not McCaffrey or Kamara as a receiver.
He's more Zeke Elliott.
He's faster than Elliott.
I mean, as far as just like running the football and just like he's not, because Zeke Elliott is not really that pass catcher. If you will. So listen. I have grown to love Josh Jacobs. I didn't love the pick because I just hate taking running backs in the first round, but he has performed at a very high level. And I think that and he's become a leader on this team. I mean, no question about it. You can see the way, people like Waller, people like Adams react to him. He is a guy who definitely speaks for that locker room. So listen, your point is right there. I was thinking the same thing you were thinking. I'm looking at Dalvin Cook at 12.6, Derrick Henry at 12.5 a year. Like all those guys are like somewhere right in between. If he wants to reset the market, then that's not.
And you just franchise him, and then he's going to show up. Like
he's not going to not
be upset about it, but like the way that the collective bargaining agreement is written now, he's going to start getting fined a ton of money if he doesn't. And I don't think Jacobs is that kind of guy. I think
he's not that guy.
Just listening to him talk, like he loves playing football. He wants to play football. He wants to stay with the Raiders. If he has to wait another year to get his deal, then he may do that. Now they may fully sign him, and I expect them to sign him long term, but I just don't think they're just going to make him the highest paid player at the position the first day in March and be like, here we go. Like we just locked up Josh Jacobs.
For the cap, it is better to long-term deal than franchise tag.
They can spread out the cap hit, and usually when that happens, let's say it's a 4-year deal at $16 million a year. So that comes out to like $64 million. They'd probably give him 20 to 25 guaranteed, but the first year base salary would probably be league minimum or $1 million.
Yeah.
So the first year cap hit's not bad. It's when you get into years 3 and 4 towards the back end of that deal. Now he's 2 years older. Now he has 700 more touches on him.
Yeah.
Then you turn into Zeke Elliott, where like Tony Pollard's better than him, and they're still stuck with Zeke Elliott making a ton of money in Dallas.
Yeah.
And he's not the same player that he was when he got the deal.
No, he's not the same player at all as far as that goes. Yeah, I mean, this is a conversation where like I think I think we both feel. I think everybody feels around football that he's going to be back. It's just that at what number. So as far as that goes, so I don't think Raiders has to worry about him trying to bolt as far as that goes. Although you never know. The quarterback, Derek Carr, right? He's made, he wrote a letter today, all that stuff like that. We know about that. Let's find him a home. Let's find him a home because his home is not in Las Vegas anymore. There's homes in the Midwest, there's homes in New York, there's homes in the South. Let's see where we can find him a spot. I think looking at rosters and looking at let me pull up the salary cap for some of these teams.
Yeah, I got it right here in front of me too.
Yeah, because I want to make sure that we on some shows we'll sit there and just say, oh, he's going this place, going that place. I have him going here, and I'm like, they're actually $50 million under over the cap. So how's that going to work? As far as that
The
goes.
Saints
So
would have to. Let's just look at the Saints real quick. They're
yeah,
last. They're 50 million under. Now they've been worse in the past, and they've gotten back to even. But not only are they 50 under, they'd have to create 35 to bring him in. So they'd have to clean up $85 million just to add one player to their team.
yeah.
I just don't see New Orleans as a landing spot.
I don't see the New Orleans no one spot either. Let's go. Let's discuss the Panthers here. The Panthers, decent roster. What are the Panthers looking like as far as their salary cap situation?
They're about 6 million over right now, so it's pretty easy to do some accounting numbers and move that around. Now they don't have a ton of veteran players with contracts they can spread out on that roster. It's a bunch of young guys.
Yeah.
Maybe Taylor Moton or the right tackles on a pretty sizable deal, but you have to find a player that still has a lot of productive years left, where you can take some money, convert it into a signing bonus, spread it out, add some voidable years. I don't know how many of the players like that they have on their roster.
So I'm seeing all these people want him to go to Gangrene. I don't listen. I like the roster in New York. They get Brees Hall back healthy. I mean, they got a running game. They got some receivers. The kid at Ohio State, Garrett, all those people like that. They do have some pieces there. As far as the cap goes, what are they, seven? What did I say?
$3 million over or under.
Under.
So they have $3 million, but they have to pay Quinn and Williams, who's already threatened to not show up if he doesn't have a deal.
So that could be an issue. I mean, Carr for Williams. Let's do that.
They're not going to do that.
I know. But yeah. So I mean, like, I don't. There's some moving parts here, right? Because they just had a situation where they moved their offensive coordinator. They parted ways. So they're looking for a new offensive coordinator. I thought that maybe that's a spot for Jimmy G. Because running that same kind of Shanahan offense, but that he's gone now. I'm not sure who the rumor is or who's taking over that spot. Todd Downing is out there. I mean, who knows? I don't know. Greg Olson, like, I mean,
he's worked with Solid before.
Worked with Solid, but so, like, I mean, that could be a matchup there as well too. So that could be something to look at. But what do you think about a fit with the Jets? Because I just don't know. Like, the roster, if the Jets were playing in Tennessee, I'd be like, yeah, fine, who cares? But like them playing in New York, the media, all that stuff like that, like, Carr the Carrs don't seem like a New York family. And I'm not stereotyping them, they just don't seem like a New York family. But I'm just like, do you think like that's a good spot for him?
Roster wise, it's a great spot. They have a good defense, they have a young running back, they have a couple of weapons outside. I think they can create enough room to bring him in, add a quarterback to that roster. They have $3 million in cap space, but they can probably move around 30 million pretty easily if they needed to. I don't know, like, if he fits long term, like in that division, he's going to have a ton of cold weather games.
Exactly.
The media is going to ask a ton of questions of him.
He can't say
when they're not playing well. He can't just say it's on me.
That's not going to work. Not going to work.
The media is a lot harder on it. Let's just say the Northeast than it is in Las Vegas, or it was in Oakland. So I think that I would have a more concern about those things, the weather, the division, playing games in Buffalo, playing games in New England down the stretch, playing games in New York where the wind's blowing around, in MetLife. I would have concerns November, December into January if they make the playoffs, but they're a quarterback away with that roster being a legit, team that can make the playoffs. Now, are they going to be better than Buffalo if you put Derek Carr on the roster? No, I still think Buffalo's a better team. But out of the teams that we've talked about, he's a better fit there than he is with the Saints or the Panthers, in my opinion.
Yeah, I believe so too. What else we got here? Washington. I mean, the head coach is familiar with him. They are, but probably looking for a new quarterback. Where the Commanders money wise?
They have 11.5 now. Assuming they franchise Deron Payne, that's going to eat all of that up, and then they'd have to figure out. I think that defensive tackle is close to 19 million. So they'd have to figure out another 8 million just to tag him, then come up with another 30 million. It's probably possible if you look at their roster. I'm sure they have some guys they can move on from. When he's talking about organizational stability, that Daniel Snyder's not going to be the owner next year. He's selling that team. So like you're going to have whole new ownership who's probably going to want a new GM, who's probably going to want a new head coach. Like I would just cross them off immediately. I don't see the Commanders as an option here.
Yeah, I don't see them either. People keep bringing that up as well. What about and listen, they've done a great job of having a new quarterback every year in Indianapolis. Why not Derek Carr? What are your thoughts about him for the Colts? No, coach.
That one probably makes sense too. They've been interested in the past. They have 20 million in cap room. They have plenty of cap room. They can move a couple pieces around and get him. Who's the head coach?
Yeah,
who's the offensive coordinator?
Yeah,
well, let's be honest. The owner's kind of cuckoo. He's kind of fallen off the wagon here with some of the stuff he's done in the last couple of years. Football wise, it makes sense. They have a decent offensive line. They have a really good running back. They have some young weapons on the outside. Gus Bradley's there. If he's retained by the new head coach, there's some familiarity, someone that could champion for Carr in the front office or with the front office that has some experience with him. I would put them towards the top as far as potential here. But now let's remember, they're picking 4th. They're going to have a chance to get a rookie. If they really want to do it right and just go in and say, you know what, we're going to take a couple more years. We're going to do a quick reset here. We're going to get that rookie contract. Then we're just going to build up the rest of this roster around whoever that rookie is. That would be a really scary roster if you have a rookie contract and then you can just go out because they have a ton of young, good players. They just bring in a bunch of free agents, elite players at a couple positions, give out a couple monster contracts and just build that thing around a rookie. So it's a good fit. I think that front office probably leaning towards going the rookie route because they're going to be in a position to pick in the top 4 to get one.
Yeah, makes a whole lot of sense there. Let me see here. I think they had another one. What about so if Tom Brady leaves or retires, could you think that Tampa Bay would be a spot for him as well?
Now, everyone wants to say the NFC South because he would be the best quarterback in the NFC South. But there's no arguing that. If Tom Brady leaves, Derek Carr goes to that division. He's the best quarterback based on what's on the rest of his roster as of today in January. They're $43 million under the cap. They're right next to them, and the Titans, Buccaneers, Saints have the least amount of cap space. So they would have to do a number of
crazy
number
things.
Crunching there. And this is projected for next year. So like this already accounts for the free agent. They don't have Levante David under contract. So they would have to figure out how to bring him back if they wanted to bring him back. But they'd have to sacrifice a lot of the guys on that roster just to bring Carr in.
Yeah.
And the cap's a myth. Let's just say it what it is. If the owner has deep pockets and he's willing to just throw money around,
the guarantee money, yeah,
we're not talking 10, 20 million. We're talking it's going to take $100, $200 million to guarantee all these bonuses, put the money in escrow, go in and get Derek Carr, go in and get these pieces, especially if he's a free agent, to put signing bonuses into escrow accounts. And you can wipe away these cap numbers as long as your owner's willing to do it. A lot of owners won't do it. So we have to remember that too.
And also too, like, I mean, they have to have that discussion in that room and they got to be honest. They can't just be desperate for a quarterback. They have to say to themselves, is Derek Carr a game-changing quarterback prospect? And that's that's the biggest thing. Like, I mean, is he going to change the locker room? Is he going to change? It's not like, is he going to change, the way we do things? Or is he automatically going to be a guy who's going to help us win, 11 games, 12 games, automatically be a playoff or a Super Bowl contender? That's a question that they have to ask themselves if you're acquiring Derek Carr. Any other spots you think we might be able to squeeze Derek into? Tennessee, maybe?
I got 3 sneaky ones here, and these are all teams with plenty of cap room, and some people are probably going to shake their heads. I'm going to say New York Giants. They have $57 million in cap room. If they decide they don't want to bring Daniel Jones back, which they may bring him back, they made the playoffs. He's a young guy that can move around, but they didn't have any weapons for him to throw to. But in the small chance they do decide to get in the sweepstakes, because they can actually make this trade for Derek. Let's just say it's by February 15th, before they have to make a decision on Daniel Jones. So if they know we're getting Derek Carr and Daniel Jones is going to be a free agent, they don't have to franchise him. They run the risk of franchising and paying him a ton of money and then having to lock him up with a big deal with a ton of guaranteed money on top of that if they want to bring Daniel Jones back. So I could see that Brian Dable and Derek Carr would be a nice combination. Again, there's no weapons there, and they still have to sign Saquon Barkley. I would say New England. If New England decides to move on from Mac Jones, if they said we've had enough, if you want to talk stable organizations, the two that I've always been talking about is New England and Baltimore. There's a real chance both those teams are going to be in the quarterback market. Are the Ravens fed up with everything going on with Lamar Jackson, him wanting $250 million guarantee contract like Deshaun Watson? And they may say, you know what, we have $50 million in cap room or $41 million. We can get 3 first-round picks from Lamar Jackson if we really want to.
Yeah.
Maybe they say, you know what, we don't want to run this offense. Greg Roman might not be back. Maybe they don't want to run the offense that's tailored around him. And they say, let's try Derek Carr for 4 or 5 years. Let's bring him in. Let's revamp this. We have a good defense. Let's try to air the ball out. We have a good tight end. We have a good line. We have some running backs. We have some young wide receivers. I could see Baltimore if they decide, you know what, we're done with Lamar Jackson. We don't want to deal with this anymore with these contract demands.
Yeah.
And that owner just doesn't want to give a fully guaranteed quarterback contract. Why wouldn't they be in the Derek Carr sweepstakes?
And it seems like they're reluctant. They're reluctant. I think this whole thing is because of what Deshaun Watson.
Deshaun Watson. That's what it is.
It's all Deshaun Watson.
And Lamar Jackson has every right to want that contract.
Yes,
Let's say that he has every right to do what he's doing.
100% good. I mean, just been great off the field.
Yeah.
Like, you know, he's done a lot of stuff in that Baltimore area, so it makes all the sense in the world for him to. I want to make sure that I'm glad you said that, because I want to make sure that I put it out there that I don't think that.
Yeah.
I don't want people to think that I don't think he deserves money or anything like that. He definitely deserves what's coming to him as far as cash goes. But I think we're going to have a surprise deal, I think, in this offseason. And I think somebody with draft capital are going to knock on that door and say, hey, like, you know, what's going on with Lamar? Are you guys really considering not bringing him back? And if they don't, if they're never going to give him, they're not going to give him the money. Just, I mean, you trade him, and then you can have a guy like Carr come in, and Carr's contract is built where they can just walk away from it after it's over, after year 1. If not, then they can just keep him at that number and then just say, hey, just keep throwing the ball to Mark Andrews 155 times a game, and take it from there. With New England, there are just the rumors swirling that, I mean, obviously they're looking for a new play caller. They don't have coordinators out there in New England. But Bill O'Brien and Kingsbury, if he wants to go back to New England, you know, both of those guys are there. Between Saban and Belichick, they do have that, you know, offensive coordinator or defensive coordinator rehab system going. Whenever somebody struggles, they always bring them in and kind of revamp their career. So we'll see if Bill O'Brien, who was in Alabama, if he comes up to the Northeast to go back to New England and work with somebody like Matt Jones or work with somebody like Derek Carr. Is Matt Jones an upgrade from Derek Carr? You fixed the interior offense
for which team? The Raiders?
If the Raiders do a good job, and say Illuminor is still the right tackle, but they fixed the inside, they fixed the inside of that offensive line. Is he an upgrade from Derek Carr?
I'm not going to say upgrade. I'm going to say level of play could be similar, but you're getting it at a much cheaper price.
Yeah. And
you still have that rookie deal for 2 more years before you have to start talking about a 5th-year option. He's a much younger player that you can build around. He might have a little bit more upside in the long run just because of his age, and he's been in the system. He's going to have a lot better weapons in Las Vegas than he ever had in New England. But he's not going to have the defense that he had in New England, where they would hold teams to 17 points and he could go out there, at least not next year.
Yeah.
So I think I would call it a push, but to do it at $2 or $3 million versus $35 million, I think that's where you win. Now, I don't think Bill Belichick's just going to hand you Mac Jones. Like, if they move on from Mac Jones, they're going to want at least a 2nd-round pick, if not more, for him, because their teams. I mean, look around the AFC. Like, we talked about this the last year.
Everybody has young quarterback.
Every quarterback in the playoffs is the oldest quarterback in the AFC playoffs right now is Patrick Mahomes, and he's 27. He's the oldest one. They're all young. So you're going to have to find a way to either compete with those guys or find a young one yourself, because this is not an issue that's going to go away in a year or two. This is going to be an issue for every team in the AFC for the next 4 to 5 years until all of those guys are on big, massive contracts, and those teams have to figure out how to build around those young players, kind of like Kansas City's doing now. Buffalo is going to have to start doing that here quickly next year. But Cincinnati still has a couple more years before they have to pay Burrow. Herbert still has another year on the rookie deal plus a fifth-year option. Trevor Lawrence has 2 more years plus a fifth-year option. So, yeah. And I know a lot of people talk about Miami, and I just don't see Carr fitting into that type of offense that they run there, where he's going to have to do a lot of bootlegs or rollouts and be a movement type guy. A lot
and
of
his back
stuff.
Yeah,
he's just not that guy.
Yeah, and you can see he doesn't like. I mean, his back being to the defense on those fakes, he's not going to be comfortable with that. So he's not going to be comfortable with that.
You know what happens in RPOs is the quarterback's going to get hit a little bit more than he wants to, and I don't know if Derek wants to do that either.
Yeah,
and the offensive line in Miami is putrid.
Yeah, I mean, and like, can we just? I mean, we're gonna talk about. That's what we're talking about. Is going to be the playoffs, and kind of go over these games kind of quickly. But like, let's go through these playoff teams, and like, it's not like we're sitting here watching, teams with a bunch of Anthony Munoz's on it. So the offensive line play around football has not been great in National Football League at all.
No, for sure.
So let's just go with that. So let's see here. Anything else on the Raiders before we do a little playoff talk?
I wish it was combine time and we start talking about prospects, but we're going to be talking about Josh Jacobs and Derek Carr until February 15th. I have a feeling.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not. I mean, see, me personally, I don't even have a problem. I don't even want to. I don't have to talk about Jacobs because I'm really confident that Jacobs is going to be back. I really am. But the Carr thing, I think the Carr thing is going to be there. And but at least it's happening. At least we'll know. I think we'll know early. It'll be like that kind of Matthew Stafford kind of thing situation because it's so early in the situation. They just have to do enough in free agency and everything like that to make sure they're able to convince a Brady. Or now they're salesmen now. Like at this point, they got to sell their program and say, because he has had no success as a head coach as far as winning games.
So I would like to add. Can I add one thing on Derek Carr real quick?
Yeah, go ahead.
I know a lot of people are saying, why would he work with the Raiders? Why would he take draft capital away from the team he's going to?
Go ahead.
There's ego involved here. These are men with huge egos. And if I'm Derek Carr, one, I look at it this way. How much money am I getting in year one? If I'm a free agent, am I getting $35 million in year one? Because typically what happens is the base salary is going to be $1 million. So now I need to get like a $35 or $40 million signing bonus just to get back to what I would have had if I stayed on this contract. But he negotiated 3 years, $121 million with his agent. They should be proud of that. They got a $40 million average. The other side of it too with the ego is if you want that team to be really invested in you, you want them to give up draft capital for you. So it's harder for them to move on from you. To say, if they sign him as a free agent and he flames out and they say, you know what, we didn't give up anything to get him, we'll take a cap it, we'll move on. But if I'm a team and I'm giving up a second and a 4th round pick for him and he's not great in year one, I'm going to keep him because of what I invested in to get him. And if I'm a team, I want that contract because year one is going to be a little hefty. But I can get out of that contract in year 2 if it doesn't work out. He's 32 years old. Yeah. He'll be 32 next year. If a team acquires that contract, they give him $35 million next year. Year 2, the cap hits $7.5 million if they want to move on. They'll be in the same position the Raiders are in now. Mm-hmm. So if I'm Derek Carr, knowing that, I want you to give up multiple picks for me so you won't move on from me. It actually secures my place with that franchise. Mm-hmm. And it makes it harder for them to move on from me based on we signed him as a free agent. It didn't work out. We're moving on. Yeah. There's more to this than just this isn't in a vacuum. These people there's emotions here. There's egos involved. They want to be acquired. They want someone to prove that they want them.
Exactly. So everybody's just, I mean, we'll see how much they work together. I know people were just like saying, oh, he should just not work with him at all and just be a free agent. I'm like, okay. I mean, you can play that game, but I mean, the money at hand is a little bit easier than the money that you don't know is coming. Because
there's a section of the fan base that just thinks he's going to go out and get a 5-year, $200 million deal with $100 million guaranteed. I may be completely wrong, but I don't think that's happening.
So I mean, and then listen, if you know you had that contract already and you like it, I personally would put myself in a position where I would just trying to trade. You have a no trade clause, so they're not going to send you somewhere you don't want to go. If you didn't have that, they would just call Atlanta or call whoever and just say, "Hey, we'll trade you, bag of ball."
You know what happens in that current contract with the no trade clause? When he gets traded, he still has a no trade clause. So like wherever he's going,
exactly.
I don't think anyone's going to give it to him on the free agent market either. I don't see a team giving him a no trade clause. So like if he wants to keep the no trade clause and the 35 million cash year one, plus the team's giving up picks to acquire him, that sounds much better to me if I'm Derek Carr.
Yeah. So
if I wanted to stay there for 3 or 4 years.
Yeah. So for folks, I mean, I hope that clarifies everything for you. It's pretty easy.
Yeah.
Pretty easy take. I was gonna. I mean, that's pretty easy to see why that would happen. So no playoffs for the Raiders, but there's games coming up. Obviously, we can just roll through on Saturday. Obviously, this is the easiest game, I think. Probably one of the biggest lines, but Niners, Seahawks. I mean, maybe for a quarter, but I think at some point that defense is going to take over, right?
I think the run game is going to take over. Seattle can't stop the run. Like the Raiders run over, everyone runs all over them. So like, all they have to do is turn around and hand the ball off, and I think that defense is going to keep Geno Smith in check. And whatever the line is, take the 49ers.
Yeah.
What's the line? Like 8 or 9?
8 or 9. Yeah.
I'm laying. I'll lay it.
I'll lay it too.
We're not going to do point spreads today, but I think that game's going to get out of hand pretty quickly.
We'll do what they do on TV. No point spread.
We'll just take the team.
We'll take the team, which is so cheesy when they do that.
Maybe San Francisco.
Exactly. This is probably the most compelling game of the whole weekend. I'm really excited to see the Chargers and Jaguars. A lot of young talent on that team. 2 young quarterbacks. Head and shoulders should be all over this one as far as commercials go. With both of these guys. Mike Williams looks like he might play in this ball game. I go back and forth on it with this one. I'm gonna go with the Chargers only because I think that they are gonna win a game here, and then they're gonna go out and really scare the next opponent. Because they have so much physical ability, but I don't think they'll make the AFC Championship game, but I do think they're gonna win this game, and they'll have an opportunity to kind of scare the next team they play.
All week I've been saying the Chargers are going to win this in my head. I'm actually going to take Jacksonville. And Jacksonville beat them pretty easily earlier in the season. I think it was like 38-10. But when I think about this, I don't think Mike Williams is going to play. He didn't practice all week. They're going to have to turn to the running game, check downs, try to hit Keenan Allen, but they don't have anyone else in the passing game. Herbert can't do it all by himself. The Chargers defense last week got annihilated by Russell Wilson. Annihilated. I watched most of that game.
It was bad.
This game is in Jacksonville. Those fans are probably clamoring for anything close to a playoff game. They haven't seen one in a while.
It's been a while.
Trevor Lawrence didn't play well last week, but I think he can bounce back. They can run the ball with Travis Etienne. They have better playmakers outside. And they have a young defense that can fly around. And I think if you don't have options to throw the ball to is Herbert, he doesn't have him in this game because Mike Williams, like even if he does play, he's banged up. He's not 100%. I just think that Jacksonville finds a way to make one more play than the Chargers, and I think they win.
Yeah, should be a fun game. I'm really excited about that game. Another, in that early time slot means they think it's going to be a blowout. The network, so just so if your wife wants to do something early on Sundays, definitely get that one done. I don't think Miami has a chance without half a quarterback and against the Bills. The Bills just want to get this thing going, so they can face the Chiefs. I think the Bills go ahead and win this game rather easily against Miami. But good job by Miami for making the playoffs with a bad defense and a bad offensive line. I heard that wasn't possible.
Yeah, I'm just gonna take Buffalo. There's no way that Skylar Thompson's going on that. Like they couldn't do anything against the Jets last week at home. They're not going to Buffalo and winning that football game.
No way. Another one that's I guess pretty compelling is Giants Vikings. This is gonna be I don't know whoever has the ball last in this one because I mean I just don't trust. I kind of trust the consistency of the Giants to kind of hang in this game. Do they win it? I think they have a great chance to win it. As far as the road teams go, they probably have the best chance. I think this weekend. So I'll probably go with the Giants to beat the Vikings.
This is tough. You have 2 rookie head coaches. You don't know what really to expect from either one of them in these kind of situations in playoff games. You don't know what's going to happen with Kirk Cousins or Daniel Jones. I think I'm going to lean towards the Giants just because I think the running game is a little bit better there. Dalvin Cook got banged up last week, and when it comes down to it, the only reason I want to pick the Giants is Daboll has coaching experience in the playoffs with Buffalo, and I think that's the decision maker. I know Kevin O'Connell was with the Rams. I just trust Daboll a little bit more.
Yeah.
And I know he doesn't have Justin Jefferson. He doesn't have Adam Thielen, that Kirk Cousins, but maybe Kirk Cousins just throws that untimely interception.
Yeah.
And the Vikings have played a lot of close games this year. They've won them all. They've been blown out 3 times. I think this is a close game, and I just trust Brian Daboll to have something in his bag that the Vikings aren't prepared for.
Yeah. Raider coach.
Now
Brian
Daniel
Daboll.
Jones is going to throw 4 interceptions, and they're going to get blown out because I picked them. But I'm going to pick the Giants this week.
I'm not sure they're gonna. I mean, like he has to throw. I mean, I don't know. We'll see what happens on that one. But I do like the Giants in this game. I like that coaching staff to kind of get it done there. 2 more games left real quick before we go. I do like the Bengals here. To win this game. No Lamar Jackson. I think they win this game, and which would set up a great game between the Bills, and the Bengals.
Yeah, I'll take the Bengals. Like they just played Baltimore, beat them fairly easily. They beat them earlier in the season. Or I'm sorry, Baltimore beat them earlier in the season, but it's Joe Burrow, Lamar Chase versus, is it Huntley? Is Huntley playing? I don't even know which. They ran Anthony Brown out there last week, so I'll just give me Joe Burrow at home. That's all I need to say.
Yeah, he's outstanding. And then Cowboys. I'm gonna pick the Cowboys here. I'm gonna say that Mike McCarthy finally gets it done. I know it's a big deal with Brady being involved and everything like that. Everybody's terrified of Brady, but I think it's gonna be a back and forth game. Scoring like crazy in this game. Could be in the 30s, I think. But I do like the Cowboys to win this one.
Yeah, I don't trust the offensive line for Tampa. It's another team with a really bad offensive line, and no one wants to say that. And I just trust the pass rushers. I trust Micah Parsons. He's going to be a handful. The Buccaneers can't run the ball. They're last in the league in running the football. So you can't have Tom Brady drop back 45 times against this Dallas defense with the edge rushers they have, because the tackle situation in Tampa is, I mean, Wirfs has been up and down. He's been injured a little bit, but on the other side, Donovan Smith is a holding penalty waiting to happen. Like, I'm just putting Micah Parsons over there, and I'm going right at Donovan Smith the whole game. The interior of their line isn't very good. And Mike Evans, outside of the one game against the Panthers, didn't score from week 4 on. He had 3 touchdowns in one game against Carolina, but other than that, like he had no touchdowns outside of week 4. So I don't know. I'm just give me that. Give me them.
Yeah, no question about it. Cool. Sounds good.
Can't believe I picked Dallas, but
it's weird to pick Dallas in a playoff game. But I mean, I'm thinking. I mean, I think Dallas is very talented. So I'd be interested to see how they handle the situation. And
they're a more balanced team.
They're more balanced. Yeah, more balanced team. And just Dak, this first drive, you've been doing it. Get that interception out the way, and then throw 4 touchdowns.
I think Tony Pollard is a difference maker in that game out of the backfield.
They got something special in him. So, all right, Raider Nation. Thank you for joining us here. Make sure listen. So our goal is to get to. I'm gonna put the goal out there. I want to get to 1,000 subs before the draft. So let's keep that up. We have around 619 subscriptions. Keep those subs coming. But we have 4,000 views. So, and y'all 4,000 views, do the math. Like, just click that button. You pressing play to watch the show. I can see all the analytics, and you can also do the bell to make sure you go ahead and get alert every time we drop a new video. So keep it up. We got some really cool draft content coming for you on NFL draft. So this is kind of, besides the actual games themselves, this is the draft is great. It's great. And we love talking about the prospects from college. So I think that's pretty much it. Ryan, got anything else?
Nope. Just ready for the off season. This is my time. I love the off season.
I do like the draft. I do like the draft.
That's all we have to look forward to for the last 20 years.
That's it. Hopefully somebody won't take Cleveland Farrell or Darius Hayward Bay in the first round. All right, Raider Nation. Take care. Take care. Raider fans, Trojan fans, thank you for watching and supporting the channel. Click all the little things around us and you can see more shows from the Student Body Right, USC podcast, and The Put On Raiders podcast. Fight on. See you, Raider Nation.